And we are back. Another edition of Colts Corner with Kevin Bowen here, recapping a 30-20 loss. Boy, imagine having the over. Your level of rejoicing at an Alec Pierce touchdown there late in the game. Eddie Garrison, that was awful. Awful from Joe Flacco. Horrific. I cannot believe the first play happened. And I almost immediately just started writing after that. And it's like, okay, well, I know how it's going to end. I don't know how it'll necessarily get there, but you can't do that against Josh Allen. And probably that's the most frustrating aspect. You know, imagine telling Shane Steichen before the game, Allen's been picked, 2 times and 260-some passes this season. You're going to get 2 picks. Josh Allen's going to look like Josh McCown in the first quarter, and you're going to be down 10-0. Just an unbelievable and such a shocking start for the Colts, and now they face questions at quarterback. They face questions inside their locker room, and it is not good on any level. Good Monday morning to you, sir.
Yeah, good Monday morning. I don't know if we can put the word good in front of Monday unless, we're looking at it from the Pacers perspective.
Sure. Kurt Signetti, Benedict Mathurin, good Monday morning to you.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. I have no
Marcus
idea
Freeman,
where to start.
can I mention my Irish?
I guess. They took care of business, right?
Hey, the second biggest loss in the history of Florida State football. We will happily take that here.
Where do you want to start? Because, there's a lot to go here.
I just think generally I'm here. You made a win now move, and you've gotten worse. And that is the root of the issue. The win now move. Remember when Shane Steichen uttered the phrase, we're evaluating everything? What was the one action out of those words?
It was just benching Anthony for Joe Flacco.
And now you have a turnover machine at quarterback. And I don't know if I have any kind of grand thoughts besides that. Eddie, I almost feel like we should just get right into it. The biggest thing I didn't like from Sunday was Joe Flacco. The interception. How many times do you script that play? Think about the first play of the game. Go back and watch the play. There's nothing exotic. There's nothing crazy about what Teron Johnson did. It's a simple zone drop. It looks like he's backpedaling on the first rep of a Wednesday practice.
It looks like the drills they go through in warm-ups before
Literally,
the game.
Yes, exactly. And that is a clean pocket for Joe Flacco, and he throws the ball right to him. Obviously, the screen pass after that interception. These interceptions are not downfield. They're not saying, oh, man, I respect the aggressiveness.
They're not tipped.
They're just stupid. And I don't use that word lightly. He's 39. He can barely move. He's not going to create. You can't afford to be stupid. And these decisions are largely that. 6 turnovers in 2 games, 2 touchdowns, bless you, and 21 drives. You're 7 of 23 on third down. You're getting losing football from the most important position in sports. You made this move, and he is, if you want to really simple it down, the reason you've lost these last 2 games is because of him in that position. And again, I don't say that stuff lightly. You hear Shane Steichen after the game, well, veteran leadership is why he's starting. Well, that's why he's costing you for the exact opposite of veteran leadership. Veteran leadership doesn't throw the ball to the other team on the first play of the game.
I was about to say, what leadership?
They don't get picked on a screen.
He looks like he hates his life.
And putting body language to the side, which I get, people are frustrated with this body language. Just the simple execution of playing quarterback. You can't have that. You theoretically benched Flacco to improve your chances of winning, and he is the reason why those chances have gone the exact opposite way here. 4 turnovers in total. The Alec Pierce one, I think it's hard to ask Pierce to climb the ladder that much, frankly. I don't know if it's outright blame on Flacco, but
it looked like Pierce did jump just like a half second early.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's such a great jumping athlete. Part of it's if that's not him, I don't know how many guys even get their hands on that ball. But I just come back to the first play of the game, man. It just totally sets the tone. I frankly, when they announced him at the start of the game, I'm like, that's one of the more subdued cheers that I've heard.
Right.
For a quarterback here running out of the tunnel. So losing football. That's what you're getting right now from your quarterback. It was a huge reason why you lost. Because, when you get down like that, now everything has to be perfect. And that's really hard to do. You just play with way too much fire, and it's going to come back to haunt you. And Josh Allen eventually settled in and made the Josh Allen type plays you would think he would make, and the rest is history for the rest of the game. And Eddie, are we allowed to live in fairy tale la la land for a second?
Oh yeah, we should.
Okay, let's act like the turnovers never happened. Joe Flacco didn't throw those picks. No fumbles the last 2 weeks. Let's take the turnovers out of the air. Okay? So he's had 21 drives, 6 turnovers. Put the 6 turnovers aside. 15 drives. Are we acting like that final drive of the game was a real drive? Was Buffalo trying on that final drive? I saw Buffalo players literally stopping.
I doubt it. They probably went to that prevent defense and was like, you know what, let's just not get hurt. And if he throws us the football, he throws us the football.
I'll go with 14 real drives that Joe Flacco's led the Colts offense on the last 2 weeks. 1 touchdown in those 14 drives. If you want to be, hey, you can't ignore the final drive of the game. Okay, sure. 2 touchdowns in 15 drives, if you want to go there. Even if you want to say, hey, turnover machine, he's not going to be that. That's not him. 6 turnovers in 2 games, that's not going to continue. Well, where's the other stuff? Where's the good with it? It's not like you're off. Like Jameis Winston, what does he do? He throws a bunch of picks, but, he also throws some touchdowns. He had the 30 for 30 season. But you're not getting any of the other stuff, the good with it. It's not like you're moving the football at great success. You're finishing off drives. It'd be one thing if you could live with a little, hey, he did throw, like Allen yesterday. I mean, he threw 2 picks, but he also led an offense to 23 points? Without, his top 2 wideouts? That isn't there for you. And if I'm Shane Steichen here on this Monday morning, that's the question I'm asking myself. Assuming the Anthony Richardson benching was not due to off-the-field issues or this is some sort of punishment, which who the hell knows. If you're literally making this decision because it's win now, nothing Flacco has given you is win now. The turnovers are certainly not that. But even if you want to live in a fairy tale of, no, he's not going to do that anymore. He's not going to turn it over. Well, 1 touchdown and 14 drives ain't going to make you sleep any better at night. And the turnovers, too, it's stupid decision-making. It's not like dude is in his face, he smokes Flacco at the time of the ball being released and the ball flutters in the air and is picked off. Or whatever, Teron Johnson makes some incredible play and undercutting Josh Downs and picks the ball off. Like, that isn't there either. So you got a Flacco problem, you got a quarterback problem. Short-term, long-term, you've got one.
I just don't get the whole quarterback situation right now. I really don't.
Yeah, and I know I am paid to give you a little bit more on the accurate part of it, but I don't get it either. How much is it off the field? How much is it Monday through Saturday? How much
I think
is
it's
it
100% off field.
So then,
not production.
Should it be an outright benching? Should Ellinger be the backup?
I have no idea.
Why not turn to Richardson in the short yardage?
I think it's one of those things is that you're not giving him just a little taste. It's either all or it's nothing, especially with the fans.
Well, then have him inactive. If it's all or nothing,
I guess.
I mean, if you're really trying to send this grand old message, then go there. Is it Irsay? Past precedent would indicate that's a possibility.
That's where I tend to side just because it doesn't make any sense. Shane and Chris both said leading up to this season, after they drafted him, hey, we got to be patient. We got to give this kid time to develop. And it's not going to be pretty, but we've got to see it through. Right. And then all of a sudden, he has a couple of bad games. He taps out, subs himself out of the game. Next thing you know, it's an outright benching. It just does not add up at all. The way that it just completely changed makes 0 sense. Because it's not like in his final start, they went to Joe Flacco because of a poor quarterback play. It just doesn't, against Houston, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything that you're saying.
I could hear you out or hear out Shane Steichen if, they bench Richardson against Houston at some point in the second half, Joe Flacco goes out there and leads into a win. I can't hear you out on that.
Right. I just, there's an element of like, if it is off the field stuff of just like, hey, this is Eminem. You got one shot, one opportunity. Here we go. You haven't been as Monday through Saturday accountable as we'd like you to be, and we haven't done a good enough job making sure you understand the standard either. Whatever. Play both sides of it and sit him down and say, here we go. The games are too precious. The reps are too precious. We've invested too much. I don't think there's malintent in Anthony Richardson's actions.
Mm-hmm.
Let's try this. Let's try it. 7-8 weeks. And again, if you don't get the answer you're looking for, hallelujah to some people. You've got to, like, what Shane Steichen's got to figure out right now is this. The two most important things are this: the development of Anthony Richardson and finding the answer on Anthony Richardson. Those are the two most important things. You develop him in an ideal world. What happens? It turns out positively. That works. Okay, great. That might be fairy tale as well right now. Or you get the clear answer and you're able to pivot as a franchise before the upcoming offseason.
Right.
You don't waste the 2025 offseason.
Yeah.
Nothing matters about Joe Flacco playing football for 2 months.
None.
Nothing. None of it. None of it.
And I think it's going to be a weak move if they bench Richardson through this 4 or 5 game stretch where it's the most difficult stretch of the season, and the Colts go 0-4, 1-4, or 0-5, and then it's like, all right, Anthony, you're back. I think that's such a weak move.
Right. Again, I think these are great opportunities for him to be out there. I mean, I was talking to Bills people in the press box yesterday, and they are just dumbfounded by it. They were like, did they not learn from us? Did they watch Josh Allen in 2018? And I think people are a little bit under a misconception of what Josh Allen looked like in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that much better in 2019.
No.
It was an uptick, but it was very much, baby steps. And so it was just interesting to hear that sort of perspective on it. And again, that's obviously a big wishful thinking that it's going to turn out like that. Mm-hmm. But still, if it gets you to clarity quicker, because, I mean, look at Buffalo. I mean, they drafted E.J. Manuel in what year?
Oh, goodness. I don't even remember.
What I'm getting at is they drafted E.J. Manuel. They didn't hold on for dear life for year after year after year. They got to clarity. And then when they felt like the right quarterback was there, they made the big move and they traded up twice in 2018 to get Josh Allen. Mm-hmm. Like that, you have to be able to pivot as a franchise and realize when you get there. So, Eddie, I am equally at a loss, and I guess I apologize to Colts fans that I am at that loss, largely probably with them.
It just sucks for you. It sucks for me. It sucks for the fan base because the guy that is speaking on behalf of the franchise is the guy that should not be speaking on behalf of the franchise, and that being Shane Steichen, because I believe that this wasn't a Shane Steichen decision. I think it either came from above him and Chris Ballard or Jim Irsay, and if it's coming from Chris Ballard, it doesn't make sense to me either, just because I think Chris Ballard's, the rest of his career here in Indianapolis is tied to the success of Anthony Richardson, and if this team doesn't win with Joe Flacco and they're benching Anthony, then that means it's the end of the Chris Ballard era.
Well, I mean, again, logic would have had Chris Ballard gone during the 2022 season or after the 2022 season, however you want to look at it. So, again, debating logic with this franchise is probably a worthless exercise. Okay, the other thing you did not like is the end of the half, and I asked you when we were having our pre-pod meeting, I was like, which half? Yeah, I mean the first half. I went back and watched the TV copy. I guess there was were you at the game yesterday? No. Okay. So, at the game, they explained it that replay assist basically chimed in there, and the Colts didn't need to take a timeout. So the Colts, I think it was originally announced that Shane Steichen had taken a timeout, and then they took that timeout away. They said that Ty Johnson, I think it was Ty Johnson, had stepped out of bounds on that play, so there wasn't a need for a timeout. So my mentions were flooded with people ripping Steichen for taking the timeout, giving Buffalo theoretically more time. Allen hits the MVP type play. So I guess I just want to clear up a little bit of that. Steichen obviously was trying to take a timeout, but that ultimately did not lead to Buffalo, getting extra time to get into Tyler Bass field goal range. I want to go back a little earlier in the half there, about 1:30 to go, and you get that 3rd and 1. And Taylor gets stuffed. Now it's 4th and inches. 4th and inches, they run out Goodson as the tailback. You think Buffalo's going to get ants in their pants when they see Tyler Goodson? Hell no. As the lead back on 4th and inches? Hell no. I don't get why Anthony Richardson is not utilized in short yardage. You can point to that play. You can point to the 4th and 2. That's a weapon. That's a win now weapon that you have on your football team. Flacco is not an asset there. I mean, think about the Jonathan Taylor conversion from earlier in the game. That was just all Jonathan Taylor's second effort in getting that 4th and 1 a little bit earlier. So the fact that you A, you couldn't go for it. B, you watch the opposing team with their 6'5", 240-pound quarterback seemingly pick up every single one of those throughout the game. It's just maddening, I think, is where you're at. from that standpoint. So just the handling of that, you not extending a drive there, and then, I mean, the play that Allen makes is obviously vintage Josh Allen, but man, I mean, what an opportunity. Adengbo's right there, Latu's right there, they both swing and miss, and then they just, I mean, that's just a lofted prayer down the field that Mac Hollins is able to come down with, and just, that was such a big sequence.
Am I in the minority that I wasn't overly impressed with that play?
Oh, I thought it was tremendous by Allen to roll out to his right to, two would-be sacklers fall at his feet, and then he chucks it 40 yards down the field, and Hollins is right there, and he gets out of bounds. I mean, wasn't that 3rd and 10? I mean, anybody.
Yeah, something around that.
I mean, if Adengbo hits him harder, if Latu hits him harder, if they get there earlier, I just thought it was that play got them 3 points. And more than that, it extends it to 7. They don't get the ball to start the third quarter. Now they're feeling really good. They feel back in control. Like, I think they had kind of lost it as it got to 13-10 a little bit, and the Colts took that lead. And now I felt like they were back in control. I thought he made about 3 or 4 MVP type plays, and I thought that was one of them. I thought his scramble, the 30-yard scramble was one of them. And then what was the throw over Knox's shoulder?
Yep.
Beautiful. I mean, breadbasket throw. Allen obviously didn't play great yesterday, Eddie, but I just walk away from a game like that thinking, man, he didn't play great, and I still point to like a handful of plays he made that were incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And like it was the QB reminder for me of just like, you have to still strive for that. Those are the guys you got to go find.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's any secret the division leaders right now in the AFC have all of them. Every team has them. Allen, Buffalo, Jackson, Baltimore, Stroud. I know it hasn't been perfect for him.
Burrow.
But, well, yeah, I mean, yes. But I'm talking division leaders, Mahomes and Kansas City. I mean, it's just, everybody's got that. And again, if you want to be optimistic, Eddie, only one of them is a top 5 pick.
Mm-hmm.
Stroud.
Mm-hmm.
Allen is 7 and Mahomes is 10 and Lamar's 32. Like, it's not like you've got to be New York Giant bad or whoever the worst team is in the league this season to get that sort of attempt at it.
Right.
So, yeah, I just thought the end of half, I thought that was a really big sequence. And both offensively unable to sustain that drive and then defensively giving up the big one. But the Steichen timeout, I mean, maybe he was a hair aggressive there, but that was taken away. So I just wanted to clear that up because I think on the TV copy it was not cleared up.
It wasn't totally all ugly. There were some positives, not a lot to take away from the game. So let's dive into what you liked, the defensive playmaking from the Colts.
I mean, I go back to what I said to open up the show, Eddie. Imagine telling Shane Steichen start of the day, you're going to get 2 interceptions that both get you into Buffalo territory.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the EJ Speed play was great. Long arms of him. I mean, that was a chunk play. That guy was open. I forget who, Samuel, Shakir, I forget who he was throwing to, but he was open. And EJ Speed made a great play. And then Kenny Moore, equally, jumping the route, great read, great reaction to it. And the bummer is you only got 3 points off of that drive, off of those 2 picks. I thought Zaire Franklin had a big 4th down earlier. They threw to Samuel early in the game.
And he had the breakup, right?
He had that pass breakup. So, all of those plays I thought were really, really key, and you kind of been missing from the Colts this season. And to get those plays, it just kind of adds to the sting of it of like, damn, you got those plays, and yet you still weren't able to do a whole lot of substance with it there. So I wanted to make sure we acknowledged it.
Big Grove again had a nice game.
Yeah, Grove. How many? He had a ton of tackles. I think 7 or 8 tackles. Yeah,
3rd on the team.
Now, again, Allen still made a ton of plays, and largely I thought the defense just kind of cracked there at the end. The 13-play drives. I think 2 13-play drives there. The screen to Shakir was such a backbreaker. So there was still some plays there that obviously had a big impact on the game, but I think you had to acknowledge the defense and that early playmaking. It kind of gave you hope. It kept it, really, a 1-score game? Was it 1 score going into the 4th? Yeah, it was. It was a 1-score game going into the 4th there, and yet you weren't able to get it done.
And then I know on the pod a couple times, maybe. I know for sure on Querying Company from noon to 3. On the Fan, I have said this time and time again. This Colts team has been missing a player like A.D. Mitchell, because he's one of the few guys in that room that consistently gets open for the Colts. And he kind of had a little bit of a mini breakout game yesterday.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair to say. 6 snaps in Minnesota the week prior. The Michael Pittman Jr. conversation probably should have been had a little bit more like a month ago. Again, commend him like no other for playing through what he's playing through, but he just shouldn't be out there. And, they gave Mitchell a big role. I was kind of curious how much would Ashton Doolin eat into that. Mitchell played 94% of the snaps.
6 targets, 6 catches, 71 yards.
Yeah. Obviously had the fumble, which you don't want, but, still, I thought a really nice step in the right direction for A.D. Mitchell. And we'll see how much, first off, we'll see how much Michael Pittman Jr. sits, although he didn't go on injured reserve, and then how much they juggle playing time here moving forward. But you just like what Mitchell does in terms of creating separation. And, the thing is, he made some of those businessy looking decisions early in the season, but it's weird when you watch him run after a catch, I don't feel like that's there. I feel like he's a pretty aggressive player with the ball in his hands. So really good from A.D. Mitchell there. 6 catches, like you said, on 6 targets for 71 yards for the rookie.
My thought last week was maybe they felt comfortable now giving him an expanded role, and that's why Pittman was held out against Buffalo's, because maybe they're finally to the point where it's like, okay, we've got trust in this kid to go out there now in a very large role to go out there and perform, and he did.
Yeah, that could certainly be true. Boy, Pittman Jr. just looks so limited to me. It's almost like even before you have that trust in Mitchell, even Ashton Doolin at 40 snaps would have been better than Michael Pittman Jr. He was laboring like none other.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be something to keep an eye on here moving forward.
Twitter question time. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
We will start it out with Garrett. Another chore of a game to sit through this week. Is there anything to learn from the Colts sending Joe Flacco, Jonathan Taylor, and company out for the last drive, despite being down 30-13?
Yeah, I was curious too if we'd see AR then. Taylor out there too was interesting. I'm like, oh boy, imagine if he gets hurt right here. Boy, they need a pass catching back. I'm gonna say it right now. April, round 4, round 5, find a running back that excels catching the football. I know you tried that, I guess, with Evan Hall a couple years ago, but I'd like to see that now. Even more of a jittery type athlete. I don't know. Hall isn't necessarily that for me. Again, there was part of me of certainly in college, you would see that a lot. Teams opt to go to their backup. I don't feel like I think Aaron Rodgers played every snap. I think he attempted every pass for the Jets yesterday. And they got blown out. Wouldn't you think with Rodgers going to the medical tent and, you would opt there? It's just I don't feel like NFL teams do that as much as I think they should do that. So
right.
I thought that they might go with Richardson, but they obviously opted for Flacco instead.
By the way, Nyheim Hines a free agent after this season. There you go.
Love me some Nyheim Hines, but unfortunately that horrific jet ski accident I think has really impacted his career.
There's a long list of running backs that we'll probably eventually get into once the season is over. Next up is Matt, Craig, and Josh. Are the Colts imploding from the inside out? Just listening to Kenny Moore's comments and Zaire Franklin speak to the media makes me think, if not most of the team, is checked out. Also, why the F is Joe Flacco in the game after he threw his second pick?
Yeah, I think we got about a million Kenny Moore questions. And, basically after the game, everyone's not working hard enough. I'm paraphrasing here, but that probably sums it up, in a very small manner there. Couple thoughts. First off, I appreciate someone in the organization speaking their mind. I'll start there.
Right.
Kenny Moore, I guess, felt the need to go to Twitter after the game, and I kind of walked back his comments, saying something to the effect of hey, when we fall short, my emotions are high. As a team captain, it's on me to right the ship. I believe in our team, and I love battling with these guys. I was nodding my head big time at Robert Mathis. I don't know if you caught that one. Mathis retweeted Kenny and goes, if everybody likes the leader, then you have a problem. You said what you said. I think there's this misconception that the leader needs to be everyone's best friend.
No. Nope.
And I think healthy tension can be beneficial. I think a little bit of uneasiness and on edgeness can be beneficial. There's probably a balance between that and a culture that people like to be in.
Yeah.
Certainly. That is needed to be struck. But I just think there is, again, a very big misconception of we can't ruffle feathers.
Yeah.
And Chris Ballard is such a locker room believer. It's arguably his biggest belief. Be curious what he really thinks of Kenny Moore's comments. Mm-hmm. That's got to be a shot to the heart when you think about where you're at. And again, that's a Jim Irsay question here on this Monday. If I'm Jim Irsay, I'm the owner of the franchise, and I think to Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen, what's the biggest reason you hired Shane Steichen?
Because of his offensive prowess and his creativity and his ability to develop quarterbacks.
Okay. And what's that done for you here?
I know it's a family program, but jack shit.
Thank you. Nice use. Jack shit is not usually one that I hear too often. There, that was a good one. Chris Ballard, arguably his biggest belief is locker room, and then you hear those comments, and it's a locker room approach that has been routinely run it back. And like when you run it back, I have not been a fan of running it back and not using outside of the building resources for many reasons. One of them is I do think guys just naturally fall into complacency.
Yeah.
That's just human instinct.
Yes.
I mean, like, I'm not blaming them necessarily for it, but like a challenging of a different, Eddie, you and I have dealt with leadership changes within our company.
Yes, sir.
And what does that do? It creates a little bit of, you're on the edge of your seat a little bit more. You're not sitting back as much as you are.
What's the thing you always say about Peyton? Or I don't know if it's you. I think it is you or Jake or somebody. Whenever he walks into the room, you go from sitting back in your chair. Now you're sitting up. You got the right posture. You're locked in. You're dialed in on the meeting because he's going to call you out if he sees that you're slacking.
Yeah, and I just think that is a missing element to the Colts. High character, individual players that are self-motivated. Yeah, you would like to think that that's there, and I do think at times the Colts have more of that than most teams in the league. But those C's on the chest and bringing guys in from different teams, different organizations, that can be, I think, extremely beneficial to you and can add something that, hey, maybe this spice should go into that dish. We haven't used it before.
Right.
But that might turn out to be a good thing. I can't think of many captains.
Buckner would be the only one that I can think of.
Right, and you got to go back to what? That was a 2020 trade? That was a while ago. So it's a lot of just internal, homegrown talent. And again, that can be beneficial to you to a degree, but it just is... I thought Kenny Moore had some very, very profound comments. And very necessary comments. I appreciated his transparency and feeling the need to air that out. And, Zaire Franklin and Julian Blackmon also had similar comments. So, I had no issue with it whatsoever. I'm curious, how Shane Steichen will react to those comments because Shane has 4 core beliefs. Paints them in the end zone at West 56th Street. There's 2 practice fields. They got 4 end zones, of course. One word in each end zone. One of them is preparation. So when you hear the preparation word specifically mentioned, what does Shane think of that?
That was one of the first things he said in his introductory press conference.
Right. That was. So, that I think is going to be interesting to see how he was react. And I just want to preface by, for those that missed the Kenny Moore scrum, the Kenny question that led to this answer was posed as hey, we just spoke with Jonathan. Jonathan Taylor said everything looks good in practice, but it's not translating to games. What have you seen? And he took that question and totally swatted it away.
You remember earlier in the year when Jonathan Taylor had some very aggressive comments about that? And we just kind of, didn't make anything of it?
Right.
And now it's coming back again.
Kenny's comments mean more to me than Jonathan's.
I agree with you.
But I'm glad that you brought that back up. Again, when it comes from different voices, to me, that matters a little bit more. And so when I hear that from Kenny, a beloved Chris Ballard player, beloved.
Are these defensive players getting frustrated with the offense?
Where do you point to? Because
the burden is constantly on the defense to go out there and either force a turnover or force a stop. Because they know the offense isn't doing anything.
It is, but I would argue let's not lose sight of this 9-game, 10-game chapter of a season because we remember how chapters 1 and 2 went when the defense was getting just gashed and set the tone for the season. You have a unit that has continuity. And this is where the whole accountability, those things in the organization are head-scratching.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie, they were the 29th ranked defense in the NFL last year in points allowed.
Mm-hmm.
They brought back their coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
They brought back pretty much all of their meaningful assistants.
Mm-hmm.
They brought back all 11 starters.
Mm-hmm.
And they extended or new contract 6 or 7 of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that to me is not rewarding. That to me is rewarding a bad defense.
Yep.
Like, and again, weeks 1 and 2, I can't ignore that. Certainly right now, the defense is doing more heavy lifting than the offense, unquestionably. But let's not lose sight of what Joe Mixon and Josh Jacobs did early in the season. So, and again, this goes back to, I remember being at training camp the day that they announced extensions for Frank Reich and Chris Ballard, and I thought, why? Like, did I miss something? Like, what? I mean, like, you and I get a raise here, and like, the very few times it ever comes, it's for good reason, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's actual tangible things around that. And I'm like, wait, what? Did I miss, like, is Jimmy Sexton their agent, and he's just, plotting them in different, head coaching searches like he seemingly does with all those big time clients, and these guys get new paydays here. So, I don't know. It's, again, I appreciate Kenny speaking his mind.
One last thought that I have on this. If it is the defense, calling out the offense, I don't think they're calling out the entire group. I think they'd be calling out one particular person, and it's the person who's not playing. And it's to the point where the defense is frustrated with the decision-making from somebody else that Anthony is not starting, and perhaps this is...
So they're frustrated with Anthony, or they're frustrated with the decision?
I think they're frustrated with both. I think the locker room, from all aspects, backs Anthony and has full confidence in Anthony to be an NFL quarterback, but they're frustrated that they're sitting there watching Joe Flacco go out there and playing at the level he's playing at.
I asked Joe Reitz when we had him on our show last week. I asked Joe, because there's this universal thought, I think, in the NFL world of, hey, what's the acronym for NFL? Not for long. These guys don't want to wait through patient projects. They don't want to sit there, time is ticking on their careers. They want to win now, and they want to win now. And I largely think that is true.
Yeah.
But I think in this instance, too many people were too quickly jumping into that pool with, hey, you can't lose the locker room. You have to turn to Flacco. And I'm like, okay, I would say in most instances you're right, but listen to Ryan Kelly rattle off all the quarterbacks he's played for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all of these guys, when I say they're all homegrown talent, that means they've all played through all these quarterbacks.
You got Josh Downs out there like, what, Joe's like almost 40 years old, right?
So, like, the whole, I get where you're coming from on the Band-Aid, win now stuff, but, like, they also realize, guys, that approach has never worked.
Mm-hmm.
Do we all of a sudden think it's going to magically work now?
Yeah.
And I tried to caution, and again, a high-end backup gives you a 35% chance to win a football game. That's what a high-end backup does. A normal backup's closer to, 15 to 20%.
Right.
Flacco is probably in that camp. 35, maybe 40% chance if he's playing well. Right now he's 1-3 as a starter. I mean, that's probably about where it's at. Maybe you'd like to see him a little bit higher than that. But, like, that's where you're at. He walked into a 7-4 Browns team that had the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL last season. I just think there was this misconception that all of a sudden he was going to magically take 4-4 to whatever it needed to go to as the schedule was toughening up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, when Shane said that several times after the Miami game, we need to play better, we need to play better, we need to play better, knowing the competition was rising. Well, it's been 3 straight losses since then.
Mm-hmm.
With that competition rising. And not like, I don't think significantly. I mean, Houston, look at them right now. Chinks in the armor. Look at Minnesota. A miracle, frankly, to beat Jacksonville yesterday. So, like, it's not, at that standpoint, Buffalo needs a 61-yarder to beat Miami last week. Like, so I think that's just kind of what adds to it, too.
All right, let's move on to the next question. Tyler, was there an issue with the way Anthony Richardson was throwing his interceptions? Should he be throwing them more like Joe Flacco? Joking aside, what exactly is AR learning by watching Flacco run the offense? Does Steichen really not trust AR enough to involve him in short yardage plays, whether it's 3rd or 4th down?
I could not agree with Tyler more on the short yardage element to it. It just seems like such an advantage you could potentially create for your football team and for an offense right now that is struggling to create advantages anywhere. Anywhere. Tyler, to answer it again, is it Monday through Saturday prep? Like, you get no clarity from the Colts, no matter who you ask. And, like, there are some coaches on the staff that you get that, Eddie. I don't know how in the weeds people are with listening to assistant coaches, but I would say Gus Bradley talks a little bit more candidly than, like, Jim Bob Cooter, just will talk around the question. I tweeted out a video with quarterbacks coach Cam Turner from Friday. There's no clarity you get from him.
He looks like a deer in headlights when he was talking.
Reggie Wayne certainly speaks in a candid manner. Tony Sperano was asked specifically about his group and, guys that are growing. And, again, I think you get some pretty specific answers on that. I think Ron Miles kind of fits that. So it's not like this is like a mandate from Shane Steichen of like, no one on our coaching staff says anything. Like, I don't get that impression from several of the different coaches and the assistants. And for as much of like off the field stuff that you have about him, I mean, Eddie, it comes back to like once he gets back in the lineup, Richardson, assuming he does, I mean, does the on-field stuff just magically go away? I mean, those questions are still going to be there. And like training camp, to me, was a perfect example of it this year.
When you say off-field, are you meaning like not at the facility or preparation, stuff that goes into leading up to the game?
All of it, yes. Monday through Saturday prep. Are you in the building enough? Are you on time enough? All these things, to me, are fair questions that I have heard whispers about, and I have asked these questions, I would say, in a pretty direct manner, and the answers are non-existent.
I haven't heard that. You're the head coach.
Right.
It's not something you hear. It's something you would see.
All right. So, and again, I think there's an element of like when you get to this point and you've invested so much into that particular asset, like it's got to be a sit down of like, hey man, you didn't grow up in a 5-star camp elite 11 after elite 11. I mean, CJ Strouds and Kyler Murray's and Arch Mannings of the world grew up in a different quarterback culture than Anthony Richardson did.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the standard to play quarterback in the NFL. Shane Steichen, go pick him up at his house for all I care. Like, I mean, seriously. Like, let's go and we'll hold the hand and we'll make sure that we figure this out because him, I don't know, magically watching Joe Flacco throw interceptions to the other team, what like that's probably just going to frustrate him even more, frankly, that he's not in the lineup. So, yeah, it's all beyond confusing to me.
4 questions left. Zach, it's so funny that fans in our management actually thought that Joe Flacco would take the Colts to the playoffs. Did we forget what we were watching before the season? Sure, we were 1 win away from the playoffs, but we played one of the easiest schedules, not a single offseason move, and relied on rookies at corner. No trades before the deadline either.
Yeah, again, the offseason I thought just had too much complacency for my liking there. So I'd probably start there on it.
Pretty fitting, right?
Very fitting. And I'll go back to just the fairy tale world of Flacco. Let's eliminate the turnovers. 1 touchdown and 14 other drives?
Right.
Like, even if you took those away, you still aren't getting anywhere near quality football.
You're still not getting sustained drives either.
None of it. So I just don't. I hear Zach's question. It's so funny that fans in our management actually thought that Joe Flacco would take us to the playoffs. That thought is so scary to me that I'm almost sitting here thinking, boy, it might be best for the franchise that Richardson was not meeting his standards off the field, so that's the excuse. Because if they really thought Joe Flacco was going to magically resurrect this season,
right,
that might be more of a worry to me, if that makes sense. It just, boy, it's just, it's not good at all. And again, I think Zach points out here, certainly the schedule was easier last season. And you've caught some good schedule breaks this year, and not playing Tua, not playing Jordan Love, and took advantage of one, didn't take advantage of the other there. So, it's just I think it's a very short-sighted misconception whether they want to live in the short term or the long term reality of it. Again, I'll go back to talking with Bills people yesterday, just the level of stunnedness that like they're really going to play Flacco, and it's like they're going to. I mean, there's questions about the kid staying healthy. He's healthy and you're not playing him? I mean, can you imagine he comes back and, after 2 games he gets injured? Obviously, that'll bring a greater discussion into it. But it's like, wait a minute. You're sitting him with healthy reps.
Yeah.
And if there was this much worry about him as a pro and off the field if that stuff is true, why wasn't that confronted in the offseason?
Yeah.
Why wasn't that confronted before, week 10? I mean, he sat out 2 to 3 weeks there with the oblique injury.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why wasn't that, again, more of a topic then? So when he gets back in the lineup, it's not an issue.
Just doesn't make sense, Kevin. That's the only thing I can keep saying. Just does not make sense. Michael and Jay ask a very similar question. Why does it seem like Colts fans and media are more right than the Colts decision makers year over year over year? Found myself cheering and hoping that the fans would keep booing the Colts out of the stadium. That sums up the season pretty well.
Are you good with booing? I'm a pro booer.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm a pro storming the field. I'm a pro booer. Boy, I thought that Flacco cheer was so subdued. And again, this is where Irsay has to have the pulse, Eddie. He's got to have it. I have disagreed with the Chris Ballard blueprint. The binder that he puts on the table saying this is how you build a roster. I disagree with that. Okay? Let's put that to the side. Let's open up his binder. Okay? You big trenches, again, short-term quarterback fixes, blah, 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 all these things. I'll pay whatever positions that good players fall into. I'm not a believer of whatever. Certain positions deserve this money versus that money, et cetera, et cetera. Draft pick-wise, I don't feel like maybe lately there's been a little bit of a shift into positional value, but I don't think that was there throughout the tenure. Okay, all those things. Even if you look at his blueprint, that hasn't worked.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me...
And there's been no alterations of said blueprint
very
either.
little. Very little. So that's where, if I'm Jim Irsay and I'm evaluating these two, and I almost feel weird grouping Steichen. I think there's an element that a first-year head coach gets a second chance within that job, and I think Steichen is entering that territory of he has screwed this up. It's a big screw up, but I also don't think he should be fired. I'm kind of that thinking of coaches. I think we're too quick to bail on quarterbacks at times, and I think we're too quick to bail on coaches at times. So I think that is important things to keep in mind here. But, the booing to me was perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. I had no issue with it. And I think Irsay's just got to look at a lot of these things. And I go back to what I said to you earlier, Eddie, of Shane Steichen, what do you supposedly do best? Offense and quarterback. Mm-hmm. Okay? We haven't scored over 20 points in 5 weeks. That is a stretch that bad football teams do, that the Colts has not done as a franchise many times in the last 30 years. Okay, that's not working. Okay, what does Chris Ballard believe in? Locker room. Well, did I hear the locker room yesterday? That would worry me. As the owner of the franchise, of the business, that would worry me. But oftentimes when I've tried to put myself in Jim Irsay's shoes, it's not necessarily been what he's thinking. So good luck predicting it.
To follow up on your Shane Steichen comment about being sometimes too quick to pull the trigger on coaches, if they do, would that be more of an indictment on Shane Steichen and his, the decisions he made and the guys losing trust and belief in him, or would that be an indictment of it? Or say just wanting a clean slate for both spots, right. GM and head coach? Yeah,
part of me wants to table the convo, but this is why I was in the camp of you fire Ballard in 2022. Because you just get into these, you get the Mike Vrabel, John Robinson situations in Tennessee where it's just awkward.
Chuck Pagano, Chris Ballard.
Right. It's just, right or wrong, the head coach and GM, in my opinion, it deserves to be a pairing that is tied together. And when one goes, both goes. Now, again, I know that I'm talking out of two sides of my mouth right here and saying, well, Ballard should be on a different leash than Steichen. So, then do you hire a GM that's only going to sign off on the head coach? I know that creates more awkwardness and more messiness, but damn, dude, it's just so much of it you're at a loss for.
Yeah.
And it's just really difficult to explain. And that is, I think it's maddening. I think it's maddening for the fan base right now that this is where you are at.
2 questions left. Flippin and Cameron. I'll start with Flippin's question, Kevin, and then I'll provide some context around it in a minute. What should the Colts fans be rooting for to end another pointless season? Is it Joe Flacco to be so bad that they have to play Anthony Richardson? Is it to lose every game and check Tankathon? Now, in the last part of that, in terms of losing every game, the Colts have the Jets, the Patriots, Tennessee, the Giants, and the Jags still left on their schedule. Those are all teams that have a worse record right now than the Colts. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 teams that are ahead of Indianapolis if you're looking at draft order. So right now the Colts would have the 12th pick.
I have to remind myself at times that, like, you're never speaking to all fans that are all in the same boat.
Mm-hmm.
There are fans that are on different boats. And I get it. Like, you get caught up in the emotion of being at a sporting event. I mean, next week you're going to watch and Aaron Rodgers is going to shrug his shoulders at one point. And you're going to be like, I effing hate Rodgers. I want to beat him so bad. And you're going to see the Patriots in a couple weeks and they're going to show one highlight of Belichick in the hoodie and you're going to want to kill him.
Yep.
In 60 minutes of football. So, like, I get that. I fully acknowledge that. But to Flippin's point, in my opinion, someone that is trying to create sustained success, yes, the best thing is to, A, develop Richardson, B, get clear answers on Richardson, and C, probably get as high of a draft pick as possible.
Right.
But, I mean, we'll probably get more into this Wednesday on the pod, Eddie, but look at the AFC right now. How many wins for that 7th playoff team?
Is it 5 right now?
How many wins do you think at the end of the year? 9 and 8?
Probably at this point. At this point, yeah.
So the only 5-loss team, is that the Broncos?
Yes.
Colts and Bengals are next up with 6?
Yes.
So again, you would ask the Colts or the Bengals, if it's not Denver, you would ask the Colts or the Bengals to go 6-1 the rest of the year to get to 10-7. That is lofty.
Cincinnati can do it. I don't know if you've seen their schedule, but it's pretty light.
It's still a big ask.
100%.
I mean, to win 6 or 7,
yes.
It is a big ask. And I mean, look, if you want to be, and again, I'm talking to 2 people out there, but if you want to be an eternal optimist and all you care about is making the playoffs this season, the Colts got huge breaks this week. Cincinnati misses the 2-point conversion late. Kansas City blocks the Denver field goal late. Houston somehow blows that last night with a huge lead at halftime. I mean, that is just, you could not have asked for more breaks in those specific games. So I bring all that up to say, like, mathematically, you're not going to be eliminated for a long, long time here. So I am in the camp of turning back to Richardson. I'm not saying that because I think all of a sudden he makes 4 and 6 become 7 and 6. But I think you get, to me, the 2024 season was rooted in, are you a step closer to wanting to give Anthony Richardson a second contract?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I phrased it at the start of the year. Well, right now, you would probably say no, is the answer on that. Or it's up in the air. I mean, I don't know. However you want to look at it. My goal here in the final 2 months would be to try and get a little bit clearer of a picture on that. Probably not going to happen, but that would be my goal. But, sir, I mean, like, as stupid as it sounds, I am not eliminating the Colts from the playoffs. Like, I know it sounds stupid.
I know.
Idiotic, but, like, the schedule is a joke the rest of the way.
Oh, yeah.
Outside of the Lions.
I just highlighted the teams that they have to play and where they're at right now.
I mean, the Jets, did you watch the Jets against Arizona? You know? I just... Yeah, I mean, look at those quarterbacks they're going to face the rest of the year. So what? That's Drake May, Bo Nix, Will Levis, Daniel Jones, Trevor Lawrence?
It sounds like Lawrence is done for the year.
Okay, so Mac Jones? One more time for those that missed it.
In terms of teams that are...
So Aaron Rodgers and Jared Goff the next 2 weeks. And then once you get through that, it'll be Drake May.
Yeah, it's Rodgers.
Bye week.
Goff. Drake May, bye week. Bo Nix. I'm assuming it'll be Will Levis. He started yesterday. And then Daniel Jones, if he's still starting. And then either Mac Jones or Trevor Lawrence. Although it sounds like it'll be Mac Jones.
Incredible. So, yeah, what should Colts fans be rooting for? I get that answer can't speak to everyone, but I think at the bare minimum, you're rooting for Richardson to be back under center. And then you can pick, wins and losses and however you want to look at it. But, yeah, I think that's where I'm at.
It's such a interesting question because right now it's I don't know, and that's pretty bad. Pretty bad that you don't know what to be rooting for.
It is, yeah. And like, I've said this a lot here over the last few weeks, and Eddie at times, I think I even said it leading into the year. It's weird. You're in your biggest divisional drought you've been in years, but yet you've got the rawest of raw quarterbacks under center. It's just like, boy, it's tough to satisfy the I'm spending my hard-earned money on season tickets. I want to walk out them playing, all I do is win and not, thank you for coming to Lucas Oil Stadium and drive home safe. Like, that I get that.
Had someone text me this morning that they were not renewing their tickets because they're tired of seeing shit show after shit show.
Yeah,
that was the text I got.
Right. Boy, it seems like there's so many visiting fans in the building. I get they've played a lot of drivable teams, but still, boy, that Mafia didn't mess around yesterday.
One final question. That is from Cameron. Cameron would like to know, at the end of the day, does this all fall on Mr. Irsay? Hard to overcome an owner who's fine with mediocrity. It's getting harder to even get excited about watching these games.
Yeah, professional sports, it is largely on who does that owner hire and how successful are those people. And I have said it a million times, I don't think accountability starts at the top in a very clear and black and white defined manner. I'd also argue this is a bit newish for Irsay. He won pretty quickly when he took over, when his father passed. And then, for the most part, Pagano and Grigson did win.
Yes,
they didn't lose, I would say, like this. They made playoff appearances. They won playoff games, so like that checks that box. Obviously, they had stability at quarterback that this regime has not had, but like this is newish. The Colts are starting to turn into where a lot of NFL teams sit.
Chicago,
at
Cleveland.
Some point. Right. And so this is not, like Jim Irsay is the owner of the football team is not used to this. His father probably was more used to it than he is. So,
right.
How he reacts and how he handles it is, shouldn't we hear from him even on Twitter? I feel like at times we would hear from him.
Yeah.
And now it just seems like we don't. So, yeah, it's a little bit running from the noise, running from the smoke a little bit. So,
and of course, stating the obvious here, he's dealing with his own health concerns.
Sure. No. That
in battle, so
that can't be ignored either. So, we'll see. Eddie Garrison, thank you.
Yes, sir. All the coverage post game and then leading up to the next game. 1075thefan.com.
Amen to that. We'll talk to you Wednesday. Colts and Jets, Week 11.